Today we're going to talk about how to install the Raspberry Pi CM4 module with EMMc on the BigTreeTech Manta E3EZ version 1.0. Now we're going to use Mainsail for the actual operating system for the printer for Klipper. So let me point out a couple of things between each one of these boards. This is the CB1, which is made by BigTreeTech. This is a CM4 with EMMc on board. That's that black chip right there. And then this is a regular CM4 by Raspberry Pi. Now both the CB1 and CM4 without EMMc are using a SD card or TF drive, whereas this one has it built in. So there's going to be some steps to actually setting it up. Now all of these will install exactly the same way, where the Wi-Fi port on each one of these will point towards the power supply and will plug into these ports that are on the board. So it's a board-to-board contact. So I'm going to pick one of these up and show you the bottom side. And the trick to it is you line up the holes on top of the board, and then what you're going to do once it's lined up is apply a little bit of thumb pressure to the top and the bottom. And that's how you install the board. Next thing though, in this case, is we need to figure out which jumpers we need to set over in here. And we also have to set this jumper and a switch position over here. So to do that, we're going to go over to the manual so we can actually see this. So I'll bring up the manual for you right now. This is the BigTreeTech Manta E3EZ version 1.0 for the manual. Now, if you don't know where to find this, you can go over to your browser and you can go to the BigTreeTech GitHub. You can click on repositories and type Manta. And then you can click here, and to download it, you'll just do this, where you download the zip. This will then appear in here, being your downloads folder. You'll right click and you'll extract all. So the manual will be contained inside this folder right here. So we're only gonna peruse the manual, but my quick way to do this for this particular configuration is to do a Control F in the document, search on EMMc and press enter. And you'll see that there's an actual version right here where you can click on page 24, and then it'll tell you what to do. So the first thing that it tells you is that you're going to have to download this file right here, being RPI boot _setup.exe. That way you can communicate with your actual board. Now the other thing is you got to set the jumper plugs for 4 and 3, which are located over in here. So that's our first set of jumpers. Down below, we're going to have to switch this to actual USB mode so we can communicate with it like it's a USB drive. So I'll show you how to do that as well. And then I'm also going to place a jumper right here so that we can actually power it with 5 volts of power. So let's go back over to the desktop. And there is a prerequisite for this, that you install the actual the Klipper firmware on the board. This can also take Marlin, by the way. But that you have to build, and I've covered it in the basics video for how to do that. That'll be up on my Patreon first, then on YouTube. But on Patreon, I've placed an actual free copy that you can download of the firmware for Klipper. So let me put these jumpers in place. And that link to Patreon, by the way, will be in the description of the video. So this is the jumper for USB power, and then we've got to switch this right here over to the USB mode. So that's I believe CAN bus and that's USB, if I can get it to switch. So the next thing I can do is actually plug it in with a USB connection. So you'll hear a beep on the computer, and then we'll have to handle that with the RPI boot in a second. So let's go back over to the desktop. I'm going to click on the already loaded version of RPI boot. Now it's running. If this runs correctly, which sometimes it doesn't, then we'll see a drive on the computer. So if we bring this up, you'll see a D drive. It appears it didn't work. So let's try this again. So let's go back over to the desktop. We're going to remove this for a second. Then we're going to plug it back in. Then we'll go back over to the computer. We'll run the RPI boot. Hopefully it'll work this time. And there it is. So you can see the drive. It's currently not filled on the actual configuration. So we need to go back over to the document for a second. And on the document, I'm going to scroll up here and show you, I'm going to page up actually to make this quicker, the actual image that we're going to use. So inside here, I found out that Fluid has become very difficult to install, and you have to install it a slightly different way. So we're going to do Mainsail. So here's the link for the actual release. So if we copy this and we go to our browser, you can actually click over here. I've actually already done it, and you can download it right here. So we're going to pull the image for 64-bit. So we're just going to click on this. And this is going to take about 5 minutes to pull down. So I'll pause the video for a moment, and then we'll use that. Okay, now it's almost downloaded. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go over to our downloads, and you can see that the RPI 64, which we can run 64-bit OS on the CM4. So we're going to go over to Raspberry Pi Imager. We're going to choose the OS. In this case, we're going to use custom. We're going to pick the 64-bit version, open that, choose the storage, which is going to be our Raspberry Pi CM4, and then we're going to write. So we'll say yes to erase all data. Now this may take several minutes to actually write, so keep in mind that what I'll do with the video is I'll probably pause it in a moment, and when it's just about done verifying, we'll actually unpause it so we can continue on. Okay, it's now almost complete. When it reaches 100% verification, I'll go to finalizing, and then you'll see this. So we're done with that part, but if we go back over here, you can see the D drive is gone. So we're going to have to reconnect to it to set the supplicant. So in order to do that for Wi-Fi, we have to go back over to the desktop for a second. I'm going to have to unplug the board, plug it back in, go back over to the computer, and on the computer we're going to have to run that program again, and hopefully it works the first time out. If not, we'll have to try again. And it worked. So we click over here, and what we want to find is the WPA supplicant.config.example. Right click on it, rename, and remove the part that says example. Then say yes, right click again, and I open it with NotePad++, and inside of here we actually have to set some things, and this will be the name of your router. This will be the password to your router. So I'm going to take care of that off screen, save it, and then we'll resume from there. Okay, now that it's saved, what we have to do is go back over to the desktop again. And on the desktop, I'm going to disconnect the power. I'm going to connect this little cup device for the Wi-Fi antenna. Okay, so you can see that's connected. that's the Wi-Fi, so I'm going to move it over here. Then we have to remove some jumpers and move some switches back. So we're going to move off of USB. We're going to pull this jumper over here for USB power because we're going to use direct power. We're going to pop out these two. And we're all set there. So we're going to power it up now. And we're going to see if we see it on the network. This may take about 30 seconds or 40 seconds to actually show up. So I'm going to pause the video for a second, give it a moment to catch up. Okay, on the desktop, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to connected devices. This is my Wi-Fi router, so I'm going to blur out a lot of it so that you can just see what I'm talking about. So we're going to click on connected devices. You can see that I'm going to do a refresh, and hopefully we'll see Mainsail in here. So we do. It shows up as the IP address 192.168.1.4. So we're going to go over to a new tab, paste it right here, and then press enter. Now this may come up kind of goofy. What it's saying right here is that we're missing the printer.config file. So that means if we go over here, you can see there's no printer config. There's a Mainsail config down in here with some information, but we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to create a file. Type printer.cfg and then say create. That'll take care of the first issue that we can see over here. Next, we got to go over to the BigTreeTech website, click on firmware, and inside here we're going to go with the generic Manta. So we're going to copy it with the raw contents. Then we're going to go back over to the printer.config file that hopefully we created in here. Apparently I'm not seeing it right now, so we may have to create it again if it doesn't show up. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to go back over here and go back. I don't see it. That's interesting. So let's recreate it here. I may have clicked cancel. That's awesome. So let's click here. We're going to paste. And the one habit that I like to do, which seems kind of weird, but it'll make sense in a second, is I like to copy the MCU portion right here. So I'm just going to cut that out. I'm going to paste it up here. This is so we can see it. And we're going to save and close. Now we're still going to have an issue because it doesn't know where to connect now. So what we have to do is fix that. So we're going to have to go in here. I'll show you the actual error in a second, but this is not correct. So let's see if we can do a save and restart and see if it shows up as an issue. So it says printer is not ready. It doesn't know what to connect to essentially. Klipper host software is attempting to connect. Please wait. So it's not seeing the actual MCU. That's what's occurring. So we're going to go over to TeraTerm for a second. We're going to do a connection right here. It's going to be 192.168.1.4. We're going to do SSH, which is secure shell, and it's port 22. So we'll click OK. We'll click continue. The name of the user in this case is Pi. The phrase or password in this case is Raspberry, and then click OK. So what we need to do is go back over to the browser for a second, click on the Klipper 3D.org, go to installation configuration install, and the actual command we need is right here because it's already pre-installed. So we'll paste that in here, hit enter, and this is our MCU. That's if you have the Klipper firmware installed on your board. So I'm sorry, it's right click to copy. So let's go back over to the error that we're having. See, it's still having a trouble connecting to the MCU. So we'll go to printer.config, and I'll show you what this looks like in contrast so you can see. So you type paste right here with a control V. That's why it's not working. So this one I'm going to comment out by doing a control /, and then we're going to save and restart. Now there will be another error about ADC any second now. So let's see what we get here. So there's an ADC issue. So we have to go back over to the desktop for a second. I'm going to have to power it down just for safety. And what's occurring is we don't have our thermistors connected. That's why the ADC error is occurring. So I'm going to connect the first one right here. If I can put it in correctly. Then I'm going to do the other one. And these are just raw thermistors so you can see what's occurring. Normally these would be your printer thermistors. And I'll show you what it looks like in case you've never seen one. So I'm going to put those off to the side and I'm going to power this back up. Now I'll pause the video just because it'll take a second to actually power up. And then we'll go from there. Okay, so it just came back online. Now it's saying that we have this issue. So this is really easy to solve. They already put it in here. It's in one of these, I think it's Mainsail. And right here you can see them. So you're going to copy all the way down to, I think, let me see what we got here. The resume macro. We'll just hit Control-C. We'll cancel out of this. We'll go to printer config. And I'm going to put this up here. This is going to look messy, or actually let's put it at the bottom of the file just to make life easier. And then we'll save and restart again. So this should, in theory, work, and it does. So you can see right here, the actual thermistor is now working, and we have our full display. In future videos, I'll go into actually setting up other things, but I'll show you a real quick test. If we put on the camera and the display, you'll still be able to see the thermistors. I'm going to pick one up so you can see it on the camera. Now I'm going to put my finger over it so we can test it. So you'll see that it actually will go up in temperature, that little tiny thing right over here. That is the temperature going up with my finger. So that's how I test it. So at this moment I want to thank my patrons for helping me offset the costs of making these videos, as well as the people on PayPal. And I also have to thank BigTreeTech for providing the board for this case as a sample, being the BigTreeTech Manta E3EZ, and they also provided the CB1. So everyone, take care, be safe, and I'll talk to you later. And there'll be credits for the people that have donated either on PayPal or Patreon at the end.